Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable and watched his homeworld burn. Through the main viewing screen, he could see orange flames spreading across the night side of Earth. Seoul was on fire. So was Tokyo. London had gone, dark 3 hours ago. The Zorathian fleet hung in space like deadly metal spiders. 12 massive warships, each one 3 times larger than his own vessel. Their black hulls reflected no light. Only the red glow from their weapons showed where they waited in the darkness. "Captain," said Commander Mi-young Park, his second in command, "Admiral Yoon is requesting all ships to fall back to the outer system." Dae-ho did not take his eyes off the screen. "What about the evacuation ships?" "Still loading civilians from the southern continents. They need at least 6 more hours. 6 hours. The Zorathians would not give them 6 minutes if they knew about the transport ships hiding behind the moon." Dae-ho looked around his bridge. 47 crew members worked at their stations. Good people. People with families back on Earth. "Sir," said Lieutenant Sora Han from the weapons station, "the Zorathians are moving. They're forming up for another attack run on the surface." Dae-ho watched the alien ships spread out in a hunting formation. They had been playing with Earth's defenses for 2 days now. The orbital defense platforms were gone. The lunar bases were silent. Only the Indomitable remained between the Zorathians and the helpless people below. "Communications," Dae-ho said. "Get me Admiral Yoon." Communications Officer Taimin Song worked at his controls. "I have him, sir." The face of Admiral Kyung-soo Yoon appeared on the side screen. The older man looked tired. Behind him, Dae-ho could see the command center of Earth's last military base. Red warning lights flashed constantly. "Dae-ho," the Admiral said. "Thank God you're still alive. I need you to pull back immediately. We're forming a defensive line near Jupiter." "What about the evacuation ships?" "They'll have to manage on their own. We can't risk losing the Indomitable. She's our last heavy cruiser." Dae-ho felt his jaw tighten. "Sir, there are still millions of people down there. And there will be billions more in the colonies if we don't preserve what forces we have left." Admiral Yoon's voice was firm but sad. "That's an order, Captain." The communication ended. Dae-ho stared at the blank screen for a moment. Then he turned to face his crew. Every person on the bridge was looking at him. They had heard the conversation. "Well," he said quietly, "you heard the Admiral." Chief Engineer Woo Jin Lee had come up from the engine room. His uniform was stained with coolant fluid and his hands were black with grease. "Captain," he said, "I've been monitoring the Zorathian attack patterns. They're not trying to destroy the planet. They're being careful to avoid major population centers." "What do you mean?" "They want the people alive, sir. For slaves." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew what the Zorathians did to the species they conquered. 17 different alien civilizations had fallen to them over the past century. The survivors all told the same story. The Zorathians did not just want to rule other species. They wanted to break them, to make them suffer. Dr. Hai-jin Choi, the ship's science officer, looked up from her station. "The evacuation ships will never make it past the Zorathian patrols, not unless someone keeps those 12 warships busy." Commander Park stepped closer to Dae-ho. "Sir, we could buy them time." "1 ship against 12? Lieutenant Han shook her head. "That's suicide." "Maybe," said Dae-ho. "But what's the alternative? We run away and let 8 million people get loaded into Zorathian slave ships?" He walked to the center of the bridge and looked at each crew member. These were not just soldiers, they were his friends. People he had served with for years, people who trusted him to make the right choice. "I want to be clear about what we're talking about," he said. "If we stay and fight, we're not coming home. The Indomitable is tough, but she's not that tough. We might damage a few of their ships. We might even take 1 or 2 with us, but we will die here." The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems and the distant rumble of the engines. Communications Officer Song raised his hand. "I vote to stay." "This isn't a democracy," Dae-ho said. "With respect, sir," said Commander Park, "some decisions are bigger than rank." She looked around at the others. All in favor of staying to cover the evacuation? Every hand on the bridge went up. Daeho felt something tight in his chest. Pride, maybe, or fear. Probably both. "Lieutenant Song," he said. "Send a message to the evacuation fleet. Tell them they have 6 hours to get clear of the system." "Yes, sir." "And send another message to Admiral Yoon. Tell him the Indomitable has suffered engine damage and cannot retreat at this time." Song smiled. "Understood, sir." Chief Engineer Lee wiped his hands on a rag. "I should get back to the engine room. If we're going to do this, I want to make sure we do it right." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I can push the fusion reactors past their safety limits. Give us maybe 50% more power for weapons and shields. Of course, if we do that for more than an hour, the whole ship will probably explode." "How long can you give us?" Lee thought for a moment. "Maybe 3 hours of full power. After that, we'll be running on emergency systems." "Do it." As Lee headed back to the engine room, Dr. Choi called out from her station. "Captain, I'm picking up a transmission from the Zorathian flagship. Put it on screen." The main viewer flickered and showed the inside of a Zorathian command bridge. The aliens were tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. Their leader stepped forward. He was bigger than the others, with scars covering his face and arms. "I am War Prime Thexval of the Zorathian Empire," the alien said. His voice was cold and mechanical through the translation system. "You are Captain Kim of the human vessel." "That's right." "Your planet's defenses have fallen. Your government has been given our terms. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to serve the Empire. Resist, and you will all die in pain." Daeho looked at the alien's black eyes. He had seen recordings of what Zorathian slavery looked like. Broken people working in mines and factories until they died. Children taken from their parents and raised to be soldiers for the Empire. "I have a counteroffer," Daeho said. The War Prime tilted his head. "Speak." "Go to hell." Thexval's face did not change, but his eyes seemed to grow darker. "You choose. Death, then. We choose to fight. 1 ship against 12. You are either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Daeho said. "I guess we'll find out." The transmission ended. Lieutenant Han looked up from her weapons console. "All weapons armed and ready, sir. Targeting systems locked on the lead ship." Commander Park moved to her station. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill." The ship's alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors as 847 crew members prepared for battle. In the engine room, Woo Jin Lee began pushing the fusion reactors beyond their design limits. Power flowed through the ship's systems like lightning. On the main screen, the 12 Zorathian warships began to move. They came forward slowly, like hunters who knew their prey had nowhere to run. "Range?" asked Daeho. 200,000 kilometers in closing, reported Lieutenant Han. "Wait for it." The Zorathian ships spread out in attack formation. Their weapons began to glow with deadly energy. Behind them, Earth continued to burn. 100,000 kilometers. Daeho gripped the arms of his command chair. Around him, his crew worked with quiet determination. They all knew this was probably their last battle. But they also knew why they were fighting. 50,000 kilometers. The Zorathian flagship fired first. A beam of red energy struck the Indomitable's shields. The ship shook, but held together. "Return. Fire," ordered Daeho. The Indomitable's main guns spoke with thunder and light. The battle for Earth's future had begun. The captured humans in the Zorathian ship's holding cells had been tortured for 3 hours. But something was wrong. Instead of begging for mercy like every other species the Zorathians had conquered, the humans were getting angrier. Marine Colonel Young Ho Nam spat blood from his split lip and glared at his alien captor. The Zorathian torture device sent waves of pain through his body, but it also triggered something else. His brain was releasing chemicals that made him feel stronger, not weaker. "Tell me about your ship's weaknesses," the Zorathian interrogator demanded. The alien's voice was cold and mechanical through the translation device. "Go to hell," Young-ho replied. The alien increased the power of the torture device. Pain shot through every nerve in Young-ho's body. But instead of breaking him, it made his vision sharper. His muscles felt like coiled springs ready to explode into action. In the cell next to him, Sergeant Bo-Ram Kang was experiencing the same thing. The Zorathian pain weapons were designed to make other species surrender by causing unbearable suffering. But human brains were different. Pain made humans fight harder, not give up. This is not working, the interrogator said to his assistant. Increase power to maximum. Sir, that level could kill them. Do it. The torture device screamed to life at full power. Both humans convulsed as waves of agony tore through their bodies, but their eyes remained defiant. Young-ho actually smiled through the pain. Is that all you've got? He gasped. The Zorathian interrogator stepped back in confusion. In 40 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Every other species broke under torture. Humans seemed to become stronger. That was when Young-ho made his move. The pain had triggered a massive release of adrenaline in his system. His heart was beating like a machine gun. His muscles were supercharged with natural drugs that made him feel like he could lift a mountain. He snapped the restraints that held him to the torture chair. The metal cables that should have been strong enough to hold a Zorathian warrior broke like string in his hands. The interrogator reached for his weapon, but Young-ho was already moving. The human marine crossed the cell in one leap and grabbed the alien by the throat. The Zorathian's eyes went wide with shock as Young-ho's fingers crushed his windpipe. Sergeant Kang, Young-ho called out as he tore the dead alien's weapon from its holster. You still alive over there? Never better, sir, Kang replied. She was already breaking free from her own restraints. The torture had made her feel like she was on fire with energy and rage. Young-ho used the Zorathian weapon to blast open the cell doors. Throughout the detention level, 47 human prisoners were breaking free from their torture devices. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had tried to break humans the same way they broke every other species. But humans were not like other species. Listen up, Young-ho shouted to his fellow prisoners. We're going to take this ship and ram it into their flagship. How? Asked one of the Marines. The same way we do everything else, with violence and bad attitude. The humans began moving through the ship like a force of nature. The Zorathians had never faced an enemy that grew stronger under torture. Their entire military doctrine was based on breaking the enemy's will to fight through pain and fear. Against humans, their greatest weapon had become their greatest weakness. On the bridge of the Zorathian flagship, War Prime Thexval received a report that confused him. Sir, the human prisoners have escaped from detention. How? We do not know, sir. They broke free during interrogation and are now moving through Deck 12. Send security teams to recapture them. We have, sir. The humans killed them all. Thexval's black eyes narrowed. All of them? Yes, sir. The humans are different from other species we have conquered. They do not respond to pain the way they should. The War Prime had been studying humanity for months before the invasion. He had read reports about their military history. Humans were supposed to be weak and divided, easy to conquer like all the others. But the single human ship had destroyed 5 of his vessels and damaged 3 more. Now the human prisoners were somehow immune to torture and fighting their way through his flagship. Sir, another officer called out. The human ship is preparing to dock with us. Good. We will board them and finish this. Actually, sir, we are being pulled toward them by their tractor beam. Thexval looked at the tactical display with growing alarm. The human ship was somehow using its dying systems to pull the Zorathian flagship closer. That should have been impossible with their level of damage. Break away immediately. We cannot, sir. Their tractor beam is too strong. On the lower decks, Young-ho and his Marines had fought their way to the ship's armory. The Zorathian guards had been expecting broken, terrified slaves. Instead, they faced 47 humans who had been tortured into a state of pure rage. The battle was short and brutal. Zorathian weapons were designed to cause pain, not to kill quickly. Human weapons were designed to kill anything they hit. Sergeant Kang, Young-ho called as they secured the armory. How long do you think it would take to reach the bridge? Maybe 20 minutes if we move fast. We don't have 20 minutes. That human ship out there is about to do something drastic. Young-ho had been listening to the ship's communication system. The Zorathians were panicking about something happening on the human vessel. Energy readings that made no sense. Quantum distortions that should not exist. Whatever Captain Kim was planning, it was going to happen soon. New plan, Young-ho announced. We're going to the engine room. Sir? If we can't take the bridge, we'll blow the engines. Either way, this ship dies. The humans began fighting their way toward the ship's power core. Behind them, they left a trail of dead Zorathians and burning wreckage. The aliens had never encountered anything like human fury, combined with human ingenuity. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Dae-ho Kim watched the quantum field build toward critical mass. Dr. Hyejin Choi and Chief Engineer Woo-jin Lee were still in the engine room, making final adjustments to the overload sequence. Quantum field at 80% of critical mass, Dr. Choi reported over the comm. How much longer? Asked Dae-ho. 5 minutes, maybe less. Commander Mi-young Park was monitoring the escape pods that had gotten away. 3 pods containing 63 survivors were hiding in the debris field, watching their ship prepare to die. Sir, she said quietly, the survivors are requesting permission to return and help with the final attack. Absolutely not. They need to get as far away as possible. They say they'd rather die fighting with us than live knowing they ran away. Dae-ho felt pride and sadness mix in his chest. His crew was still trying to fight, even from their escape. But he could not let them sacrifice themselves for nothing. Tell them their orders are to survive and tell Earth what happened here. That's how they can best serve humanity now. Lieutenant So-ra-han was still at her weapons station, even though most of her systems were offline. Sir, I'm detecting explosions. Inside the Zorathian flagship. Explosions? Internal detonations, like someone is fighting inside their ship. Commander Park checked her sensor readings. Those are weapons discharges, small arms fire. Dae-ho smiled grimly. The prisoners had escaped and were fighting back. Trust humans to cause trouble even when they were supposed to be helpless captives. Quantum, field at 90%, Dr. Choi announced. The cascade effect is beginning to form. I can see quantum distortions appearing around the ship. Space itself was starting to bend around the Indomitable. The laws of physics were breaking down as exotic energies built beyond anything that should exist in normal space-time. Sir, said Communications Officer Tae Min-song urgently, I'm receiving a transmission from inside the Zorathian flagship. How through? A human voice came over the speakers, distorted by static and the sound of weapons fire. This is Marine Colonel Young-ho Nam to any friendly forces. We have secured the Zorathian armory and are moving toward their engine room. If anyone out there is planning something big, now would be a good time. Dae-ho keyed the comm. Colonel, this is Captain Kim. You need to get off that ship immediately. Sorry, sir, but we're kinda busy right now. These aliens have some very strong opinions about us being here. The sound of explosions came through the transmission. Young-ho was fighting a running battle through the enemy ship. Colonel, in 3 minutes this entire area of space is going to cease to exist. You need to evacuate now. Understood, sir. We'll try to find escape pods. But first we're going to make sure this ship can't hurt anyone else. The transmission cut off as another explosion shook the Zorathian flagship. Quantum field at 95%, Dr. Choi reported. The cascade is forming. I can see it building in the quantum foam around us. Dae-ho looked around his bridge, one last time. Commander Park was still at her station monitoring the battle. Lieutenant Han was trying to get her weapons online for one final shot. Officer Song was coordinating with the escape pods. These people had chosen to die with him rather than abandon their post. They represented the best of humanity: courage, loyalty, and the refusal to surrender even when facing impossible odds. Quantum. Field at critical mass, Dr. Choi announced. Cascade effect initiated, God help us all. The Indomitable began to glow with a light that hurt to look at. The bridge of the Indomitable shook as another Zorathian energy beam tore through the ship's weakened hull. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the lights flickered. Captain Dae-ho Kim could smell smoke and burning metal in the air. "Captain," called Chief Engineer Woo-jin Lee over the comm system. His voice was strained. "The fusion reactors are at critical temperature. If I don't shut them down in the next 5 minutes, they'll explode and take the whole ship with them." "Not yet," Dae-ho replied. He looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. The Indomitable was dying, but she was still fighting. Dr. Hyejin Choi was still studying her readings of the quantum drive. The energy patterns were getting stranger by the minute. Something was happening to the ship's faster-than-light system, but she could not figure out what. "Sir," she called out urgently, "the quantum drive is changing. The exotic matter that powers it is evolving somehow." "Evolving into what?" "I don't know. But the energy output is increasing exponentially. If this continues, it might overload." "Completely." Commander Mi-young Park was coordinating the ship's defense from her tactical station. 3 more Zorathian ships had been destroyed in the debris field, but 5 still remained. The enemy was closing in for the final attack. "Incoming missiles," she announced. "Impact in 30 seconds. "Evasive maneuvers," ordered Dae-ho. The battered ship tried to dodge, but it was too damaged to move quickly. 2 Zorathian missiles struck the hull, tearing massive holes in the ship's side. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the vessel. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 6, reported damage. Control. We're losing atmosphere fast." Lieutenant Sora Han was still at her weapon station, even though blood ran down her face from a head wound. "Forward guns are offline," she said, "but I still have the rear battery." "Keep firing," Dae-ho told her, the Indomitables remaining. Weapons continued to shoot at the enemy ships, but it was clear the battle was almost over. The human ship was too damaged to fight much longer. That was when the escape pods began launching. Captain Kim had not given the order to abandon ship, but his crew was making the decision for themselves. One by one, the small emergency pods ejected from the dying vessel, carrying the survivors to safety. "Sir," said Commander Park, "the crew is evacuating." "I didn't order an evacuation." "No, sir, but they're doing it anyway. They want to save as many people as possible." Dae-ho watched the pods drift away from his ship. Each one carried 15 or 20 crew members, his friends and shipmates, fleeing to safety while he remained behind. But the Zorathians were not letting them escape. Energy beams lashed out from the enemy ships, destroying several pods before they could get away. The aliens were not interested in taking prisoners. They wanted to kill every human they could find. 3 pods made it to the safety of the debris field. The rest were vaporized by Zorathian weapons. Captain Kim felt rage burn in his chest as he watched his people die. "Those monsters," whispered Lieutenant Han. The largest Zorathian ship moved closer to the Indomitable. Its hull was scarred from battle, but it was still deadly. This was the flagship of War Prime Thexaval, and the alien commander wanted to finish the human ship personally. A tractor beam locked onto the Indomitable, pulling it closer to the enemy vessel. Captain Kim realized what was happening. The Zorathians wanted to board his ship. They wanted to capture him alive. "Sir," said Communications Officer Tae-min Song, "the enemy is requesting surrender." "Put them on screen." War Prime Thexval appeared on the main viewer. The alien's face was cold and emotionless, but his black eyes showed satisfaction. He thought he had won. "Captain Kim," the War Prime said, "your ship is finished. Your crew is dead. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." "That's very kind of you," Dae-ho replied. "But I have a better idea." "Speak." "I'm going to ram my ship into yours and take you to hell with me." The alien's expression did not change. "Your engines are dead. Your weapons are destroyed. You cannot hurt me." "We'll see about that." Dae-ho cut the transmission and turned to his remaining crew. Only 6 people were left on the bridge, including himself. Everyone else was either dead or in the escape pods. "Engineering," he called. "Lee, are you still down there?" "Yes, sir. Me and Dr. Choi, we're trying to figure out what's happening to the quantum drive." "Any luck?" "Maybe. The exotic matter that powers the drive has been changed by contact with Zorathian weapons. It's becoming something new, something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the universe. Dr. Choi's voice came over the comm. Captain, if we overload the quantum drive, the explosion won't just destroy our ship. It will create a cascade effect. What kind of cascade effect? The quantum energy will follow the wake signatures of every ship that's been in this area. It will track them through hyperspace back to their point of origin. Deho felt a chill run down his spine. You mean it will follow the Zorathian ships back to their home system? Not just their home system, every system they've ever visited, every planet they've conquered, every ship in their entire fleet. The bridge went silent except for the sound of alarms and the crackle of damaged electronics. What Dr. Choi was suggesting was beyond anything they had imagined. How long would it take? Asked Commander Park. Minutes, Dr. Choi replied. The quantum cascade travels faster than light. It would reach the farthest Zorathian outpost in less than an hour. Lieutenant Han looked up from her weapons station. You're talking about destroying their entire civilization. Yes, said Dr. Choi quietly. Every Zorathian ship, every base, every world. All of it would be erased from existence. Captain Kim thought about the 17 species that the Zorathians had conquered over the past century. Billions of beings living in slavery, working in mines and factories until they died. Children taken from their parents and raised as soldiers for the Empire. He thought about Earth burning below them, about the millions of people who would become slaves if the Zorathians won, about his crew members who had died fighting to protect their home. Do it, he said. Sir? Commander Park looked shocked. Override the quantum drive safety systems. Set it to overload. Captain, that's genocide. We'd be destroying an entire species. They made their choice when they decided to torture and enslave every other species in the galaxy. Now they get to live with the consequences. Dr. Choi's voice came over the comm again. Sir, there's something else you should know. The quantum cascade won't just destroy the Zorathian ships. It will also erase this entire area of space. Everything, within 100,000 kilometers, will cease to exist. Including us. Including us. Deho looked around at his remaining crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. These brave people had already chosen to stay and fight when they could have fled. Now he was asking them to make the ultimate sacrifice. Anyone who wants to leave can take the last escape pod, he said quietly. Nobody moved. All right then. He opened a comm channel to the engine room. Lee, Dr. Choi, begin the quantum overload sequence. Yes, sir. It will take about 10 minutes. To complete. 10 minutes to erase the Zorathian Empire from existence. 10 minutes to end a war that had lasted a century. 10 minutes to ensure that no other species would ever suffer under Zorathian rule. The tractor beam was still pulling the Indomitable toward the enemy flagship. War Prime Thexval wanted to board the human ship and capture its crew alive. He had no idea what was about to happen. Sir, said Lieutenant Han, the Zorathians are preparing to dock with us. Let them come, Deho replied. By the time they figure out what we're doing, it will be too late. He opened another comm channel. All hands, this is the captain. In 10 minutes, the Indomitable will cease to exist. We are going to overload our quantum drive and take the entire Zorathian fleet with us. It has been an honor to serve with all of you. Throughout the ship, the remaining crew members prepared for death. In the engine room, Woo Jin Lee and Dr. Hai-Jin Choi worked frantically to override the safety systems that were designed to prevent exactly what they were trying to do. On the bridge, Captain Deho Kim watched the Zorathian flagship grow larger. On the screen, the enemy ship was massive, bristling with weapons and armor. It represented the power of an empire that had conquered 17 worlds. In 8 minutes, it would be nothing but drifting atoms. The quantum drive began to whine as exotic energies built up beyond safe levels. Warning lights flashed red throughout the ship. The very fabric of space-time was starting to bend around the Indomitable. Quantum field at 60% of critical mass, reported Dr. Choi. Zorathian boarding party is preparing to dock, said Commander Park. Let them, Deho said, grimly. They're about to get a very warm welcome. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Jin-Woo Park stood in the memorial garden built from the wreckage of the UES Indomitable. The twisted metal had been recovered from the quantum blast zone and shaped into a monument that reached toward the stars. Flowers grew between the pieces of hull plating. Trees cast shade over benches where families came to remember their lost loved ones. At the center of the garden stood a simple stone marker with the names of the 847 crew members who had died with their ship. They offered us mercy. We offered them truth. In the end, the galaxy learned which was stronger. Those words were carved into the base of the monument. They had been chosen by the survivors in the escape pods, the 63 people who had witnessed humanity's greatest sacrifice. Admiral Park was Mi-young's father. His daughter had been the Indomitable's second in command, and she had chosen to stay on the bridge when she could have escaped. He was proud of her choice, even though it meant he would never see her again. "Admiral," said his aide, "the Galactic Council representatives have arrived." Jin-Woo nodded and walked toward the landing pad where 12 different alien species waited for him. They had come from across the galaxy to meet with Earth's new government. Some were species that had been freed when the Zorathian Empire died. Others were neighbors who suddenly found humans living next door. The leader of the delegation was Ambassador Veltar of the Kalani Republic. His people had been enslaved by the Zorathians for 30 years before the quantum cascade freed them. "Admiral Park," the alien said through his translation device, "on behalf of the freed worlds, I thank you for what your people did." "The price was high," Jin-Woo replied. 847 good people died to make it happen. Their sacrifice freed 17 billion beings from slavery. They will be remembered across the galaxy. Another alien stepped forward. This was Counselor Zephyrin from the Althari Federation, one of the oldest civilizations in known space. "Admiral, the Galactic Council has made a decision regarding humanity's status. We are offering Earth full membership with special privileges, permanent seats on the Security Council, territory grants in 12 systems, trade agreements that will make your people wealthy beyond imagination." Jin-Woo had expected this offer. In the 6 months since the Zorathian Empire had been erased from existence, Earth had become the most feared and respected military power in the galaxy. Every species wanted to be humanity's friend, and nobody wanted to be their enemy. "What's the catch?" he asked. "No catch. Only a request. We need to know that humans will use their power responsibly." "You mean you're afraid of us?" Counselor Zephyrin did not deny it. "A species that responds to torture by becoming stronger and chooses extinction over surrender is unique in our experience." Jin-Woo smiled grimly. "Don't worry, we're not planning to conquer the galaxy. We just want to make sure nobody tries to conquer us again." After the meeting, Jin-Woo walked back to the memorial garden. He found Dr. Haijin Choi sitting on one of the benches staring at the monument. She was one of the few survivors from the Indomitable's senior staff, having been rescued from the engine room at the last moment. "How are the new quantum drive safety protocols coming along?" he asked. "We call them the Day-Ho protocols," she replied. "Triple redundancy systems that will prevent any ship from creating another quantum cascade. The technology that destroyed the Zorathian Empire can never be used again." "Good. The galaxy has seen enough destruction." Dr. Choi looked up at the memorial. "Do you think they would be proud of what we've built?" Jin-Woo thought about his daughter Mi-young and her captain Dae-ho Kim. They had chosen to sacrifice themselves, to save others. Now Earth was the most powerful civilization in known space, but they used that power to protect the weak instead of conquering them. "Yes," he said, "I think they would be proud." Across the galaxy, humanity's influence was growing. Colonel Young-ho Nam, who had survived the battle inside the Zorathian flagship, now ran the Human Marine Corps training program. Former slaves from 17 different worlds came to Earth to learn human military tactics. The aliens were fascinated by humanity's approach to warfare. Other species fought until they calculated the cost was too high, then surrendered to preserve their lives. Humans fought until they won or died, with no middle ground. "The key is understanding human psychology," Young-ho explained to a class of alien military officers. "Pain does not break us, It makes us angry. Fear does not stop us. It makes us fight harder. This is not because we are brave. It is because we are crazy. The aliens took careful notes. None of them wanted to face humans in battle, but they all wanted to learn how to fight like them. In the research centers of New Geneva, Dr. Sung-Ho Yang worked with alien scientists to study the quantum cascade that had destroyed the Zorathian Empire. They had found traces of the effect in 17 different star systems where Zorathian ships had been vaporized instantly. The cascade followed their quantum wake signatures across thousands of light years, Dr. Yang explained to his research team. Every ship that had ever used Zorathian FTL technology was erased from existence in a matter of minutes. How many casualties? Asked one of his assistants. Complete extinction. The Zorathian homeworld, their colonies, their fleets, everything. Approximately 4 billion individuals. The number was staggering. In their effort to save Earth, humanity had committed genocide on a scale never before seen in galactic history. It was a burden that would haunt human civilization for generations. But it had also sent a clear message to every species in the galaxy. Humans would rather die than submit to slavery. The message had been received. In the 6 months since the IEIT battle, no alien civilization had made any aggressive moves toward human space. Trade ships arrived daily, bringing gifts and offers of friendship. Former enemies sent ambassadors to negotiate peace treaties. Earth's colonies, which had been preparing for evacuation before the battle, were now growing rapidly. Millions of humans were spreading across dozens of worlds, building the foundation of humanity's galactic empire. But it was an empire unlike any other. Instead of conquering worlds, humans protected them. Instead of enslaving other species, they freed them. The galaxy had learned to fear human military power, but it had also learned to trust human moral principles. In the officers' club at Luna Base, a group of young human naval officers discussed their future assignments. Earth's fleet was expanding rapidly, and there were opportunities for advancement throughout human space. I heard they're offering command positions to anyone who can pass the advanced tactical course, said Lieutenant Jaewon Kim, no relation to the famous captain. My sister says the colonies are desperate for experienced officers, added Lieutenant Soo-Jin Lee. They'll give you a ship and a crew just for showing up. I want to serve on one of the new exploration ships, said Lieutenant Hana Moon. There are still thousands of star systems that nobody has explored. Who knows what we might find out there? The young officers were optimistic about humanity's future. They had grown up hearing stories about the Battle of Earth and the sacrifice of the Indomitable. To them, those events were not a tragedy but an inspiration. They represented the best of what humans could achieve when they worked together. As the years passed, the story of Captain Dae-ho Kim and his crew became legend. Children across the galaxy learned about the humans who chose death over surrender. The phrase, "Remember the Indomitable," became a rallying cry for anyone facing overwhelming odds. On the anniversary of the battle, representatives from every free world gathered at Earth to honor the dead. Flowers were placed at the memorial garden. Speeches were given in dozens of languages. Moments of silence were observed across the galaxy. Admiral Jin-Woo Park, now in his 70s, still attended every ceremony. He would stand before the monument and remember his daughter Mi-young and her fellow crew members who had given their lives for freedom. They were not perfect people, he would say in his speech each year. They made mistakes, they had fears, they sometimes doubted themselves. But when the moment came to choose between their own lives and the lives of others, they made the right choice. That is what made them heroes. The galaxy had changed because of what happened that day above Earth. The age of conquest and slavery was over. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to work together. The universe was becoming a better place, and at the center of it all was humanity, the species that had refused mercy and offered truth instead. In the cold depths of space, the wreckage of Zorathian ships still drifted in 17 star systems. They served as monuments to the price of cruelty and the power of sacrifice. The galaxy would not forget what had happened when an empire of conquerors met a species that would rather die than submit. The story of the Indomitable had become more than history. It had become a promise. A promise that as long as humans existed in the galaxy, no species would ever again face slavery or extinction alone. Freedom had a new guardian, and its name was humanity. The memorial garden grew quiet as the sun set over Earth. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities. But tonight, the galaxy slept peacefully, knowing that somewhere among the stars, human ships kept watch over the darkness. The space around Earth lit up like a deadly fireworks show. The Indomitable's guns fired again and again, sending streams of blue plasma toward the Zorathian ships. The enemy vessels returned fire with their red energy beams, turning the darkness into a storm of light and destruction. Direct hit on their second ship, called out Lieutenant Zorathian from the weapons station. Their shields are down to 60%. Keep firing, ordered Captain Dae-Ho Kim. He gripped his command chair as the ship shook under enemy fire. The Zorathians were not holding back anymore. All 12 ships were firing at once. Commander Mi-young Park worked at her tactical station, her fingers flying over the controls. Evasive maneuvers, pattern 7, she called out to the helm. The Indomitable twisted and rolled through space, dodging the worst of the enemy fire. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Woo-Jin Lee watched his instruments with growing concern. The fusion reactors were running at 130% of normal power. Warning lights flashed red throughout the engineering section. "Sir," called his assistant, "reactor temperature is approaching critical levels." "Not yet," Lee said. "The captain needs more time." He wiped sweat from his face and adjusted the power flow to the weapon systems. The ship could not take this punishment much longer, but every minute they held out was another minute for the evacuation ships to escape. Back on the bridge, Dr. Haijin Choi was studying her sensor readings. Something was wrong with the Zorathian weapons. They were not firing at full power. "Captain," she called out over the noise of battle, "I'm reading something strange about their energy signatures." "Not now, Doctor," Dae-Ho said as another enemy beam struck their shields. "Focus on damage control." But Dr. Choi could not ignore what she was seeing. The Zorathian weapons were designed to do more than just destroy ships. She had been analyzing the frequency patterns of their energy beams, and what she found made her feel sick. The weapons were specifically tuned to affect human brain chemistry. When the beams hit living tissue, they would cause maximum pain before death. The Zorathians were not just trying to kill humans quickly, they wanted them to suffer. "Sir," she said louder, "you need to hear this." "What is it?" "The Zorathian weapons. They're not just weapons. They're torture devices." The bridge went quiet for a moment, except for the sound of enemy fire hitting their shields. Even in the middle of battle, everyone had heard what the doctor said. "Explain," said Commander Park. "Their energy beams operate on a frequency that causes extreme pain in human nervous systems. They could kill us quickly and cleanly, but they choose not to. They want us to suffer as much as possible before we die." Lieutenant Han's face went pale. "Those sick animals." "It gets worse," Dr. Choi continued. "I've been comparing this to records from their other conquests. They do this to every species they fight. It's psychological warfare. They make surrender seem like the only escape from the pain." Captain Kim felt anger burn in his chest like fire. The Zorathians did not just want to conquer humanity. They wanted to break them, to make them beg for mercy. "Communications," he said to Officer Taemin Song. "I want you to broadcast what Dr. Choi just told us. Send it on all frequencies. Make sure every ship in the system hears it. Sir, the galaxy needs to know what these things really are." Song began transmitting the data about the Zorathian weapons. The information would spread to every human ship, and from there, to the colonies, and beyond. Soon everyone would know the truth about Zorathian mercy. The battle continued to rage around them. The Indomitable had damaged 3 enemy ships, but was taking terrible punishment in return. Sections of the hull were cracked and burning. Half the weapon systems were offline. "Shield strength down to 20%, reported the tactical officer. "Reactor pressure at maximum safe levels," came the voice of Engineer Lee over the comm system. "How much longer can you give us?" asked Captain Kim. "Maybe another hour. After that, we'll be running on emergency power." An hour. They had been fighting for 2 hours already. The evacuation ships needed 4 more hours to clear the system safely. It was not going to be enough. Commander Park looked at her sensor displays. "Sir, I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might work." "I'm listening." "We can't outfight 12 ships in open space. But what if we don't fight them in open space?" She pulled up a tactical map on the main screen. It showed the positions of all the ships along with Earth's moon and orbital debris. "There," she said, pointing to a cluster of wrecked space stations. "The remains of Luna Base 7. If we can get the Zorathians to follow us into that debris field, we can use the wreckage as cover. That's assuming they're dumb enough to follow us." "They will," said Dr. Choi. "I've been studying their tactical patterns. The Zorathians are proud. They won't let one human ship escape even if it means following us into a trap." Lieutenant Han nodded. "In close quarters, their superior numbers won't matter as much. We might be able to take a few of them with us." "Do it," ordered Captain Kim. The Indomitable turned toward the debris field, its engines burning at full power. Behind them, the Zorathian ships followed like hungry wolves. Their war prime would not let the humans escape. As they approached the wreckage of the old lunar base, Commander Park began issuing orders. "Reduce speed to 1/4. Tactical, prepare for close-range combat. Engineering, I need everything you can give us." The debris field was like a graveyard in space. Twisted metal from destroyed stations drifted in the darkness. Broken hull plates reflected the light of distant stars. It was perfect for an ambush. The Indomitable slipped between 2 large pieces of wreckage and waited. The Zorathian ships entered the field more carefully, but they still came. Their war prime would not be denied his victory. "Here they come," whispered Lieutenant Han. The first Zorathian ship moved between the floating debris, its sensors searching for the hidden human vessel. It passed within 500 meters of the Indomitable's hiding place. "Fire," ordered Captain Kim. The human ship's weapons lit up the darkness. At point-blank range, the plasma cannons tore through the Zorathian vessel's shields like paper. The enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire and twisted metal. "One down," said Commander Park with grim satisfaction. But the other 11 ships were already moving to surround them. The Indomitable had revealed its position, and now the enemy was closing in from all sides. "Multiple contacts," reported the sensor officer. "They're surrounding us." The next few minutes were chaos. Ships fired at each other through the floating debris. Explosions lit up the darkness as both sides took damage. The Indomitable's superior firepower was matched by the Zorathians' numbers. Another enemy ship died under the human vessel's guns, then another. But the Indomitable was paying a heavy price. Hull breaches appeared along its sides. Fires burned in 3 different sections. "Direct hit on Deck 7, reported Damage Control. We've lost life support to that section." "Seal it off," ordered Captain Kim. "How many people?" 43 crew members, sir. No survivors." Daeho felt each death like a physical blow. These people had chosen to stay and fight. They had trusted him to lead them. Now they were dead because of his decision. But there was no time for grief. The battle was still raging, and the evacuation ships still needed time to escape. The Indomitable had to keep fighting. "Sir," called Dr. Choi from her station. "I'm detecting something strange from our own ship." "What now?" "The quantum drive. It's showing unusual readings. The energy patterns are different from normal." "Different how?" "I don't know. It's like it's been changed somehow. Infected, maybe." Captain Kim looked at the doctor with concern. The quantum drive was what allowed ships to travel faster than light. If something was wrong with it, they might not be able to retreat, even if they wanted to. But that was a problem for later. Right now they had 8 Zorathian ships still shooting at them, and the Indomitable was running out of time. "All weapons focus fire on the nearest target," he ordered. The human ship's remaining guns concentrated their fire on a single Zorathian vessel. Under the combined assault, the enemy's shields failed and its hull began to crack. "Keep firing," shouted Lieutenant Han. "We've almost got him." The Zorathian ship exploded in a brilliant flash. 4 down, 8 to go. But the Indomitable was dying too. Power was failing throughout the ship. The shields were gone. Hull breaches were appearing faster than they could be sealed. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Lee watched his instruments with growing alarm. The fusion reactors were approaching complete meltdown. Pretty soon, he would have to shut them down or risk destroying the entire ship. "Bridge," he called over the comm. "I can give you maybe 10 more minutes at full power. After that, we'll be running on batteries." 10 minutes. It would have to be enough. The remaining Zorathian ships were closing in for the kill. Their war prime had had enough of this game. It was time to finish the stubborn humans. But Captain Dae-Ho Kim was not finished yet. Not while there was still breath in his body and power in his ship. "All hands," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Prepare for ramming speed."